So, I need to talk to you guys probably about one of the most infuriating NFL takes that has been kind of floating around this offseason. And it kind of surrounds our quarterback, Kirk Cousins. So, we had this inspiration in this video, and if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, Colin Cowherd, he does, his show, his daily show on Fox Sports, and, it's a pretty entertaining show. He does entertaining segments. However, he does this thing where he predicts the records for the AFC and the NFC. And he got to his records for the NFC. And, he had the Vikings going 9-8, whatever. He said, ironic or pretty hysterically, he was like, I think the Vikings are going to double their win total. Well, the Vikings won 7 games last year, and now you have a winning 9. It just kind of shows, like, how the media, kind of how they view the Vikings. But that's not the point. The take that I hate and the take that I've been hearing across the country, across every news station when it comes to the Vikings is, the Vikings are good, but they have Kirk Cousins, so they can't win. The Vikings have a ton of talent, but they got Kirk. They can't win. I think that is probably the weakest and softest take in the NFL and for any sports any NFL analyst who, if they come on a show and then when they're talking about the Vikings, the 0.05% of the time when they talk about the Minnesota Vikings, and they say, a ton of talent, but they got Kirk, so they can't win. I hate that take. I hate it because it almost diminishes what the NFL is all about. Them saying that makes the NFL almost treat it like the NBA. Like, you need a star player else you can't win. You need to have a Josh Allen. You need to have a Patrick Mahomes. You need to have an Aaron Rodgers. Listen, I'm not debating that. Listen, if you got a top 5 quarterback, of course it's going to help. But this whole notion that you cannot win unless you have a star quarterback, it bothers me. And Cowherd, he also, and just like many other people, when they're talking about the Aaron Rodgers situation, they always go back to saying, the Packers could still win the NFC North without Jordan Love. And then they go through the teams, they're like, the Bears, they still got a rookie quarterback. They got the problems. Then they say the Lions are the Lions. And they get to the Vikings, and they just go, and the Vikings have Kirk Cousins. I just hate how it's like, the Vikings have Kirk Cousins, so the max they can win is 9 games. That's it. That's the max they can win. I mean, if we can go back to 2 years ago when the Vikings made the playoffs, Kirk Cousins went into New Orleans against a 13-3 Saints team when they're 8.5-point underdogs and had a game-winning drive in overtime where he threw a 44-yard dot to Adam Thielen across the top of a cover 2 zone, beat the corner that had just came into the game. He had the recognition, or somebody on the Vikings staff had the recognition, that we have a corner who has barely played on Adam Thielen. We're taking a shot, hit him, dropped it perfectly. I think that's Kirk's best pass of his career. And then obviously on a 3rd down, 3rd and 4 in overtime, you throw a beautiful fade route to Kyle Rudolph, and a bunch of, Saints fans will say it's a push-off. It wasn't. It's football. And Kirk has a game like that. And then the following week, he did not play good. But also, nobody on the Vikings played good. Everybody likes to bash Kirk for that game against San Francisco, when you could really bash Dalvin Cook. You can really bash the offensive line. You can really bash, actually, Diggs and Thielen, because, actually, no, not Diggs. Diggs had a ton of separation that game. That's probably one of the main reasons he honestly left, was because they weren't finding him the ball, and he was creating, crazy that game. But Thielen wasn't really separating. The whole offense had a bad game, and the Vikings were still kind of in that game until the end because the 49ers are just running the ball down their throats. So this is what part about the take that I hate is you can't win with guys like Kirk Cousins. And you can throw Matt Ryan in there. You can throw, I would say, you can throw guys like Andy Dalton, even though I don't think Andy Dalton's on their level, but you know what I'm talking about. Those middle-of-the-road quarterbacks who are good at football, like Derek Carr, for example. He's another guy who's going to fall into that category eventually in his career, where you have really good quarterbacks, but they aren't great, and they aren't super dynamic, and they aren't super flashy. The media, for some reason, hates that. And I think it's ironic because you take Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan, obviously not mobile guys, but they can throw the hell out of the football. They can let that thing go. Matt Ryan almost damn won a MVP and a Super Bowl MVP in the same season. If we all I mean, we all know what happened with the 28-3 debacle in the Super Bowl, but he was that close. And that Atlanta team was, yes, they had a loaded roster, but they weren't as kind of loaded as people think they were. And I'm not trying to compare Kirk Cousins to Tom Brady with what I'm about to say right now. But Tom Brady last season, I think it was a tremendous season for Brady. It was one of the most fun Super Bowl runs of my lifetime. I'm a fan. But that Tampa Bay roster, the other 21 on the roster, the 21 starters, they were almost more responsible for that Super Bowl than Brady. You know, I think over time and as history goes on, we're going to look at that Tom Brady Super Bowl run and kind of forget he threw 3 second-half interceptions in the NFC Championship game. You do not win. I think they showed a stat during the game about the amount of teams who won playoff games when their quarterback throws 3 interceptions in a half. It was like a crazy number, but they were able to hold on because of the defense, because of their running game, and yes, Tom Brady's leadership. But when it comes to the argument about Kirk Cousins, they always say he's not dynamic enough. Look at him last year, and look at this season Kirk had last season. Let's just say Kirk got the media attention that Rodgers, Brady, and all them got. And you just look at him last year, and let's just say the media actually looked at what happened to the Vikings last season instead of just saying they had an off year and having this weak spinal argument on the Vikings. Kirk Cousins led a team that was almost last in every defensive category to 7 wins with a top 10 offense in almost every statistical category. With an offensive line when it comes to pass blocking, according to PFF, was one of the bottom 3 in the NFL. If that was Deshaun Watson, and the Texans were terrible last year. Let's just say Deshaun doesn't have all this allegation stuff going on. Let's just say he's just a regular quarterback right now. And Deshaun was on the Vikings, and he did what Kirk did with that defense. Led them to 7 wins with a pretty challenging schedule, which the Vikings had last season. What would they say? They'll be like, oh my God, that was a tremendous year. He just couldn't get any help. That's a great year from Deshaun. You know, he couldn't control anything. He did what he could. I get Kirk struggled last year from weeks 1 through 6. But if you're looking from the bye and on, I think he was great. He was a very good quarterback, very sustainable, did what he needed to do. When they couldn't run the ball, he was able to throw the ball actually. Went into Chicago and played very good against that very still talented Chicago Bear defense. And listen, he had game-winning drive after game-winning drive last season. He was able to be clutch the entire season, which is why I am very optimistic about Kirk this year. So I hate that take in the NFL. You can't win with this guy. It's a team sport, and Kirk is still a top 12, whatever. You can debate top 15 quarterback. I got him rated at probably 11 or 12 right now. You can win with Kirk Cousins. It is a weak argument, and I just can't wait for the Vikings to win the division with this bum at quarterback Kirk Cousins when they win 12 to 13 games to see. I guarantee the arguments will go, oh wow, the Vikings roster is just amazing. Listen, Kirk, you will never get the appraisal you deserve until you probably win a Super Bowl if you do that. Thank you. I hate this negative notion around you in the entire media. I hate this take. Subscribe to the channel for more Minnesota Vikings takes daily. See you guys next time.